You're listening to the Balanced Educator Podcast, episode number 7. Welcome to the Balanced Educator. We're your hosts, Kaylee
and Josiane from EduCalm. Our intention is to equip and empower you to feel more calm, balanced, and joyful in all aspects of your life.
In last week's episode, we talked about what mindfulness is and how we can start our own mindfulness practice. We talked about formal practice, so that's when we're practicing mindfulness for ourselves in a dedicated time. We set a timer and we sit in silence for a while. And then the informal practice is when we take that practice into our real life. So if you missed that episode, it's episode number 6, and you might want to start there if you haven't heard it yet. Now, in this week's episode, we're continuing the conversation and we're talking about, once we've started this practice for ourselves, how can we share it with the kiddos in our life? So we'll talk a little bit about how we can share this in the classroom or how we can share it if we have kids in our own life, so at home. If you're interested in starting a mindfulness practice with your students or with your kids at home, we have a resource that can really help you out, especially in the beginning. It's called Introduction to Mindfulness, and it's really awesome because you don't need to know anything about mindfulness. You don't have to be comfortable teaching it. It's built so that you can learn it with your kiddos. So you guys can, sit down and have a 5-minute guided practice together. So if this is something that you're interested in trying, you can find it at educalm.com. So that's educalme.com. Then click on the Learn tab. It'll bring you to our online school and you'll see our Introduction to Mindfulness course there. It's a great place to start. So let's get started with this week's episode. Josiane, if I'm a teacher interested in starting out with a mindfulness practice in my classroom with my students, what would you suggest to me?
So the first thing is I would tell you not to start a mindfulness practice when the classroom is out of control and you're looking to bring calm into the classroom. That is not the right time to start. And unfortunately, that's kind of how we got started and it was a mess. So we're going to tell you what not to do first.
Yeah, I remember when I was just getting started, I had my own practice. So my thought process was, I feel really calm when I do a mindfulness practice, and it helps me to calm down when I'm feeling anxious or nervous or, out of control. So when my classroom was out of control, I was like, ooh, I know what I can do. I'll get them to meditate and that'll help calm them down. That did not work in the beginning. They didn't yet have the skills or understand what mindfulness was. So I ended up spending like 10 minutes just trying to settle them down. Yeah. And then once I got them, started guiding them through the practice, I had giggles and stuff all over the place. It wasn't effective.
Their brain is not in the right place. Yeah. To get started, right? Like they can't process something like this when they're not in the right headspace.
Exactly.
So the trick is to start when they're already calm. So always introduce a mindfulness practice when students are already calm.
That's so much better. It kind of reminds me of like if you're trying to teach anything new in the classroom, it's best to teach it to them when they're ready to learn. So sometimes we want to jump straight ahead to all the wonderful things that a mindfulness practice can do to improve our classroom management or just improve the energy in the classroom. We want those outcomes right away, but we have to remember that we need to teach the skills first before we can start seeing those changes.
And we do see those changes over time.
Yes.
So if we introduce it when they're calm and we create a routine out of it, so we do it at the very same time, at the very, like every single day, with weeks, like we really start seeing changes at 5-6 weeks-ish, would you say?
Sometimes sooner. I would say sometimes sooner, but it becomes more regular, if that makes sense. Like in the beginning, I would say when I first started, in the first couple weeks, I would have a good day where everyone was really calm the whole time. And, we got to start our practice and end our practice, and it was 5 minutes, done, moving on.
Yeah.
And then we had other days where it took a while to get them to settle. They were really fidgety during the practice, and it just didn't feel like it gave us that calm feeling by the end of the practice. So in the beginning, it was really sporadic. But then once we hit that 5-6 weeks sort of point, that's when I could really see them, just getting right into it. They knew that mindfulness was coming. They would come in, they would sit down, we would have good practices, and it would be, get in, get out, move on with the day. And then also at that point, around the 5-6 weeks, was when I started seeing them using the strategies without me prompting them to use the strategies.
Like it just became a tool in their toolbox. So if they were feeling frustrated or upset about something, then they knew that they had their mindfulness tools to help them cope, right, with the current stress or anxiety that was happening in their bodies.
Yeah.
It's amazing to watch, really.
Yeah. So you talked about making it a routine. So how did your routine look in your classroom?
So for me, I always did it after the morning announcements. The kids knew it was going to happen every single day right after that time. So they would find a spot in the classroom. Like I would let them sit anywhere they wanted. And then we would do a guided mindfulness practice together. First 5 minutes of the actual school day.
Yeah. So you said together. So you weren't always leading the practice.
No.
So does that mean that you were like meditating with them?
Yes. Sometimes I was guiding them, and sometimes I would find something online to play.
Yeah.
Often wasn't fully satisfied with what I would find because I often found that it was more for adults than for kids.
Yeah.
Or sometimes I would find things that were like too babyish for my students, because I was grade 4 or 5. And so they're old enough, that they don't want that baby language.
Yeah. You can talk to them more like adults.
Yeah, but
just
then
with language that makes sense to them.
Exactly. So I kind of mixed up both, but I found that like I would do my personal practice before work, but I also found that I needed it to do this with them.
Yeah.
One was to model it, but also because like I needed to calm myself for the day and be ready to like be a good teacher to my students.
And that was one thing that I really verbalized to them as well, that this practice wasn't something that they had to do because they were bad or that they were good. It was just a practice that we all needed, including me. So actually, one thing that I would often say to them if it was a day that they weren't settling very quickly and, they weren't sitting down in the circle or getting there as fast as I would have liked them, I would just remind them, hey guys, I really need this practice today. Like, I had the drive to work was kind of stressful and I need to use this time to calm down so that I can be a good teacher for you today. And that helped a lot when they saw that vulnerability and saw that this wasn't something that meant that they were good or bad. Like I wasn't trying to change them.
Yeah.
I was practicing something with them that was helping all of us.
Yeah. And I would also tell my students that it's just mental hygiene, like we always say, you brush your teeth in the morning to take care of your teeth. You might not always love brushing your teeth, but it's good for you. You have to do it, right? It keeps your teeth healthy, but it's the same thing.
Exactly. And then eventually you get to the point that you wouldn't dare leave the house in the morning without brushing your teeth.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's how I feel about mindfulness. Like I wouldn't dare start my day without practicing because I feel that it just helps me to just be better for everything all around.
And that was one thing that was amazing with the students is that once it was a routine every day at the very same time, then all of a sudden when we had to like skip a day just because say there was like, I don't know, an outing or something, then all of a sudden the kids are like, well, what? We don't get to do our mindfulness practice today? Like they recognize that they needed it to like clear their minds, to feel good, to be able to learn and to grow and to be their best selves in the classroom. Like they recognize it.
And
it doesn't take long.
It does not take long. Like even I started seeing that even after a couple days, the kids were going, okay, when do we get to meditate? So same thing for me. I did it first thing in the morning, right after the announcements, because I always had my kids in my classroom right after the announcements. They never had gym or music or anything that took them out of my classroom. So it was really easy to keep that routine. One time we had a school outing and the kids were so worried about not having their practice in the morning that we actually did our mindfulness practice on the bus.
That's awesome. That's amazing.
They're like, Madam, when do we get to meditate today? Yeah. I was like, okay, well, we don't have time right now, but do you guys want to do it on the bus? And they're like, yeah, that sounds good.
Way to adapt. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah. Or sometimes, we'd have to reschedule it for right after lunch, but it was really important to them. And they were very vocal about the fact that they wanted to have their practice.
And we just actually received an email from a teacher that we're working with, and she said the same thing, that recently they couldn't do their practice. And this was with our audio guided mindfulness practices. And the students were really upset that they didn't get to do their practice that morning. So she's like, I think it's going really well.
Yeah, exactly. It's pretty cool how quickly you recognize as a teacher how it helps you and how quickly the students recognize for themselves how much it helps them to really start with that calm in the morning.
So that was the formal practice first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
What did you do after that? Did you get straight to work, or what did it look like?
So right after our 5-minute mindfulness practice, we always sat in a circle on the floor because that worked the best for that group. Being at our desks or spreading out throughout the classroom just wasn't the best fit for that group. I've seen lots of classrooms where that does work, but just with my group.
They're all different.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you have to choose, what works best for your group. Right after, we would do a sharing circle. So I would have the talking rock. It was just like a pretty rock. And whoever has the rock gets to talk. Everyone else is listening mindfully and using all 5 senses to listen.
That's great.
Yeah. And then I would just ask them how they felt during their practice. They had the option to share or not. They could just pass the rock on to the next person if they felt that they didn't need to share. And it was a really great time to connect and to see where everyone is at and also teach a little bit further. So one student might say something like, oh, I feel really calm now. I feel good. Then the next person right next to them might say, I had a really hard time sitting still. And my response to everyone, no matter what their experience was, yeah, sometimes during mindfulness, we can feel that way, and that's okay. Because there's no right or wrong way to experience mindfulness. You don't have to sit still during the practice. You can notice that you want to be fidgety, or sounds in the room are bothering you, or maybe you get into this great meditative state and you feel awesome after. All of the zillion different ways you could have had,
like the outcomes of the practice.
Yeah, it's just about noticing what's happening during that practice, not about what's actually happening during that practice, if that makes sense.
Yes, yeah.
Observing yourself during the practice is what we're trying to do.
And this way to gain also a better understanding of what's going on within themselves.
Yeah. Exactly.
To be able to process whatever is happening.
Yeah.
Gives them that time.
Exactly. And it was a really great way doing that sharing after. It was a great way for us to come together as a group. And I started noticing that it was helping my students become more compassionate. When someone would say something like, I had a really tough morning and I'm glad that we did our practice because I'm feeling better now. The other students in the class got that chance to see their peers be a little bit vulnerable and recognize, if they're having a hard day today, how can I support them? Or they were able to put themselves in each other's shoes and understand why they were acting in a certain way. Okay, so let's come back a little bit. What would be the steps of how to start this in my classroom?
So first you would choose a time. It has to be the same time every day. The kids have to know that it's coming. And then you get them to sit in a comfortable position. And with kids, be flexible, if they want to sit with their back straight, great. If lying down is better, or lying on their stomachs, like whatever works. And then you can either find a guided meditation, or you can set a timer for however much time you think that you can have success with this. So if it's 30 seconds to start with 30 seconds. If you think that you have a class that can do 5 minutes, do 5 minutes. Whatever seems right, and you're the teacher, so you know.
Yeah. One thing that I did in the beginning, or actually for the whole year, I would alternate kind of between guided practices. I would guide them because I was trained in it. Or we would just sit in silence, especially on the days that I was like, okay, I really need this for myself. I put a timer up on the iPad, and I put the iPad in a place that everyone could see. So if it was a time that I wasn't guiding them and we were just sitting in silence for those 5 minutes, they could, if they're having a hard time sitting in silence, they can open their eyes, see how much time is left, and it just kind of helps them recognize, okay, I have 2 minutes left, I can do this.
Yeah.
So I found that was a really good tool that helped as well.
Yeah.
So now, if we want to start this at home, what would you suggest?
First thing I would say is have a practice yourself as the adult in the house. Last Monday, we talked a little bit about, finding a comfortable spot, shutting the door. But maybe if you have kids and you want them to get them on board with the mindfulness practice, maybe you do it somewhere where they can see you in action to start.
Yes.
Like, I feel like that would be a very natural way to like bring it into their lives. Just model. Yeah. Like you said, modeling it.
Kids naturally are interested in what their parents are doing. You just model what your parents are doing, and you tend to be interested in whatever they're interested in because you want that connection as a child.
That's right.
So just demonstrating it to your kids is such a great place to start.
Yeah.
What would be a good practice? Lots of times kids have trouble falling asleep at night.
Yes.
What would be a good maybe breathing exercises that they could do at night in bed? You could guide them through this practice as a parent to help them fall asleep.
It could simply be placing one hand on their heart and one on their stomachs, and you do it with them. Mm-hmm. Lie down with them and do it, and just take some really deep breaths and just feel your body rising up and back down and up and down.
Yeah, really connecting to the breath and noticing how it feels in your body.
Yeah. I've also talked to a few parents that have said that for sleeping, body scans work really well with kids, and that's not a hard one to guide. Like, you can just say, notice your feet. How do they feel?
Yeah.
Notice your legs. How do they feel? It doesn't have to be all this fancy vocabulary. You can just kind of help them scan through their bodies and just, okay, now let your hands relax, or let your shoulders relax, I
actually had a tape that I listened to as a kid. I totally forgot about this until this moment. I used to listen to a tape that was a guided relaxation, and it would say, notice your feet. Now relax your feet. Notice your legs. Now relax your legs. And I think I probably fell asleep as soon as it got to my hips or something.
Yeah.
Like
well,
that.
I even use this, like, I'll use a guided body scan to go to bed when I'm having a harder time falling asleep. So it's really helpful.
It's a really good tool.
Yeah.
Awesome. So now let's talk a little bit about the informal practice. So on last week's episode, we talked about, as an adult, how you can take your formal practice into your life. So using the strategies to experience your life more deeply and get more joy out of the little things in your life. What would be a good way to do this with kids?
There is a million ways of doing this. Like, we can do anything mindfully. One of the things that I love to talk about is listening mindfully. Like you were talking about doing a sharing circle earlier, and that's a really great time to practice being mindful, and not just practice it, but teaching kids what it means to listen mindfully, right? Like what does our body language look like when we're listening mindfully? Where should our eyes be? It's not just the listening part, it's the whole body.
And
right?
mindfulness, we're always teaching how to be completely present and focused on the present moment. So it's a good way for kids to notice, has my attention wandered to something else? Or am I still really hearing the words that this person is saying? Am I really paying attention to how that person's feeling as they're talking? So it's not just about the words, it's about that person's energy, their body language. How are they feeling underneath the words?
Yeah. And this is also an exercise that will help in developing interpersonal relationships too, right? That compassion piece and all of that. So
definitely. I had a couple days, I loved taking my class outside. So sometimes our mindfulness practice would be going for a walk and using all of our five senses to notice what's going on during our walk. So we would notice how our feet sound on the ground. How do our feet feel on the ground? What can I smell? Can I smell more things or something I never noticed before? That was language that I used a lot. Can we notice something that we've never noticed before? Listening. Sometimes we did mindfulness practice outside. We'd lie in the grass and I'd ask them to listen so mindfully that they try to hear more sounds than they've ever noticed before. And that blew their minds to recognize that, whoa, there's all these sounds that I didn't even notice.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah. Or sometimes, I would say, choose one of your five senses. And for this 5 minutes, notice everything you can about that sense.
Yeah.
And they loved talking about it after, about all the different, things that they noticed that they hadn't noticed before.
That's so
it was
cool.
so cool to them. Yeah. And another thing that I think is so important with kids and with adults, that mindfulness isn't like a punishment or like a training to try to be a certain way.
The opposite. It enhances life.
Yeah, it's a way for us to enjoy life more. So it should be fun. It should be playful. It should be curious. It should be interesting. We're trying to really live life at a deeper level with all of our senses. And, it's really important that we're not expecting our kids to sit still the whole time or to always do a practice where, they're completely quiet, or let them be kids.
And it's probably not going to happen anyway. Let's not have that expectation because we're just going to be disappointed.
Yeah. And I don't think kids need to sit completely still all the time. I don't think that's natural. I'm an adult and I can't sit still.
Also, that's something, we can leverage. We can add movement to our practice. It doesn't have to be always this sitting with our hands at our side, right? We can make it mindful movement if we want.
Yeah. If you're noticing that your child or your class, they're really fidgety that day, introduce movement. Hey, let's reach our arms up mindfully. How does it feel to reach your arms up towards the sky? How does your body feel when you're allowing it to move? Let's move our feet. How does it feel to move our feet?
And the little kids love doing animal breath, animal breathing. So anything with animals, you can make up anything like breathing like a bird. So you flap your wings as you inhale and exhale and things like that. They love that.
They're so creative. My favorite part of teaching mindfulness in the classroom is all of the students that I see now. They are so creative and they come up with the best, and they love coming up with new ways of breathing. So, there's butterfly breathing. So I'll say, okay, who wants to, or what kind of breathing exercise can we do today? And then someone will raise their hand, shark breathing. And then I say, okay, what does shark breathing look like? And then they teach it to the class. And then we do 3 breaths that way. And then we move on to the banana breathing, or there's
they come up with anything.
Owl breathing. Yeah. It's really fun and cute, and it makes it their practice. It's not something that you're making them do. It's something you're creating together.
And they'll use it when they need it.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing.
That is the best part, is seeing them take it from, the practice that we've been teaching them into their lives on their own. Yeah. So cool. Yeah.
And another thing that just came to mind is to infuse mindfulness in regular curriculum, right? If you're doing a unit on light, well, how can we infuse mindfulness naturally into the light curriculum, or sound, or
Yes.
Anything.
Anything in science. I mean, in science, you're supposed to be using your 5 senses to observe, right? So
yes.
Very easy to infuse it into the science curriculum, into art. Can we really see the colors? Can we really feel how it feels to create? Can we, anything that you're teaching in the classroom, you can bring a deeper level of full body understanding to whatever they're learning. And that's going to help them learn at a deeper level. We all know that, connecting emotion to learning is so important for memory.
Yes.
So if you can create an experience that they feel with their whole body in math, using manipulatives, can we really use our senses to do this math problem, to have fun with this math problem?
Yeah. I think that sometimes people think that, to add mindfulness to their already super busy day will be too much.
It'll take too much time.
But like what we have noticed as teachers is that 5 minutes in the morning saved us lots of minutes throughout the day because the students had the tools to return to calm when they needed, right? And when we're teaching curriculum anyway, so we can throw in some mindfulness activities that are part of the curriculum that's just going to enhance the learning. That's not going to be added on top of what you're already doing.
It's just part of what you're already doing, and it's a tool to help them understand at a deeper level.
That's right.
So good. So we have a tool that can help you out if you want to practice this in your classroom and you're not sure where to start. You want guidance. You want to learn it with your students or at home. It comes with guided mindfulness practices and curriculum to go with it. It also comes with a lesson plan. So essentially, we have created it so that it's so easy for you to get started with this. You can get started tomorrow. You don't need to spend a year or go to a teacher training like we did
to press play. Yeah, essentially.
Exactly. So, EduCalm was born because we were looking for curriculum and really easy ways to infuse this into our classroom, and we just couldn't find the tools that we were looking for. So we decided to create them. So you can find our Introduction to Mindfulness course on our online school by going to educalm.com. So that's educalme.com. Click on the Learn tab and it'll bring you to our online school. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us this week, and we can't wait to connect with you again next week on the Balanced Educator Podcast.
Have a great week.